everyone. Welcome back to Eternally Obsessed, and welcome to the series on the podcast where I will be diving into each Eternal, one podcast episode for one Eternal. So 10 Eternals, 10 podcast episodes. And I will be joined by a fellow creator to discuss each Eternal and what they're passionate about and what they want to talk about that specific Eternal. Kicking off the series, we're going to have fan favorite Eternal Druig, played by Barry K. Hogan, to discuss. And joining me to discuss Druig, I have none other than, I would call her the CEO of Druig herself, Skylar, aka drqkkarisvidz, on TikTok and Instagram. You guys should definitely go check her out. But yeah, thank you so much, Skylar, for joining me to discuss Druig today.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Like Rid said, I'm Skylar. You can find me on Instagram or TikTok. I'm drqkkarisvidz. And I also have my own podcast called All Things Eternals, where my sister and I talk about all things related to Eternals. So I'm going to check that out. Feel free. I'm very excited.
Yes, definitely go check it out if you want to hear a different perspective of Eternals. And if you just need more Eternals content, definitely go check her out. Check out her podcast, her edits. If you're a big fan of Drukkari, Skylar is your girl for all of that.
Yep. All things Druig, Makkari, Barry, Lauren.
Perfect. Love them. Love all of them. Love the characters, love the actors, actresses. But yeah, without further ado, like I said, this is your conversation to carry about Druig. I'm simply here to just provide insight, give my opinions on what it is that you want to talk about Druig and would like to highlight about him and his the complex character that he is. So take it away.
Okay, well, I have many things that we can talk about, so I'll kind of just go into like separate subjects, I guess. So kind of going from like the very beginning, we see that like he's one of the first and only characters to kind of question what it is that they're doing, and is their mission really the best thing for them to be doing with the powers that they have. And I mean, kind of going into a little bit of Druig Makkari's relationship, is we see that she's really the only one he's comfortable with, like having, like going against Arisham's orders and Ajax's orders, and kind of plays it off in like a joking way, versus like when Ajax stops him, he's like mad about it. That makes sense. So I think that's just something Drukkari that I just love, is that like they understand like the like hesitancy to be following their orders. And I mean, I just love the scene. I have no idea how to say the name. Tenochtitlan. I have no idea how to say it.
I honestly struggle. I believe it's like Tenochtitlan. Yeah, I'm not really sure either, but the one where they're in the pyramid, like yes, that. Yeah, it's the one set in. Oh my god, I don't even remember the city. Yeah, it's like Tenochtitlan, but I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. I probably did.
Yeah, same. It's like that scene just really showed how much he was affected by having the control to stop all of the world's pain, but then not being allowed to. And that it was kind of like his breaking point, because he had been dealing with that for thousands and thousands of years, like he said, 7,000 years. And it finally was getting to be too much, where he was just like, I can't do this anymore. I have to leave. And I'm kind of wondering if like he isolated himself with only that group of people and not the whole world, because he probably felt that like if he stayed, he would eventually take over the whole planet at some point. Mm-hmm. And that would have not been good, which I know he says that like he thought about taking over everyone on Earth, but then didn't. So I don't know.
No, it's crazy. Like my follow-up question I kind of had about that, you did mention the point that he was like the first one to question the orders. Do you think, because the way I see it, like it could have been any of the Eternals who questioned it, but do you think part of why he questioned can be due to his power? And like, why do you think maybe he was the first one? Like what part, just in like your sort of analysis, your thoughts on the character, I'm kind of curious on why you think like out of everyone, he was probably the first one to question the Eternals' missions over any of the other Eternals.
Well, I think his powers are so complex and interesting, and there's so much we don't know about them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can he read minds? Can he feel people's emotions? Can he control Eternals at some point? Like, there's so much that we just don't know. And I feel like part of with being able to control people's minds is like he has to have some sort of knowledge of what those people are feeling. So I don't think he's really like a telepath in this sense, but something along those lines where he can feel the people's pain inside himself. So like it's a larger impact than someone like Sersi, who obviously really loves humans, but it's more of that personal connection versus like for Druig, it's more of like physically he can feel all their suffering and pain, and that like is a lot for him to handle. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think like, he can feel the pain, like see the pain, knowing that he can stop it. And if the mission of the Eternals is to help humans develop, it's like, why did they have to go through that much pain to develop?
Right.
When Druig knows that he could stop it. So yeah, he's definitely put in a very like interesting position at that, like from the start. And I think that's what makes him a complex character because, after I don't know if you want to touch on this, but after Druig, the whole thing with Druig came out, he like controlled a town. And then now people, it's like Druig versus Wanda a little bit. And
oh yes.
Because both of them took control of a town. For Druig, it was longer, but also at the same time. And I could be diverting away from what you want to talk about, but
no, this is great. I love talking about this.
Since we're on the topic, it's like, as much as I get why people compare Druig and Wanda, also at the same time, I just find it a little bit of a difficult comparison to make because we know a lot about Wanda and how she controlled the town. Like, we know pretty much the extent to like most of the details, but with Druig, we don't really know. Like, we know that he took a group of people, he did take them away. Like, that was already bad. And yes, like, he's been mind controlling them, but the thing is, like, to what extent has he been mind controlling them? Has he let people go and leave? Like, has there been assimilation? That's like what we don't know. Like, we don't, because the way like people see Wanda, it's like, oh, she mind controlled these. She took them away from their lives, like for what it was like a week or something that Westview was there, right? Something like that. Like, she actually like stripped them of like who they were and like took control of a town. So like, I get that. I get why like you can see what Wanda did as a bad action, regardless of whether she did that on purpose or not. For Druig, it was like he did it on purpose, but we also don't know to what extent he did it for. Like, I don't think he was always mind controlling them 24/7. I'm pretty sure they got freedom. So I just find it like when people sort of compare the two, I'm like, it's a little bit of a difficult comparison to make. The only comparison I can see you making is why are people criticizing Wanda when Druig did the same thing? But like, if you really get into the details, it's a bit difficult to say who is better than the other, because we don't know that much information about the circumstances of Druig's town,
Right. And I think even the argument of which one is better is just not a substantial argument because, like, point blank, both are wrong things to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, like you've been saying, like, it's really hard to compare them because there's just, like, completely different situations. And I know, like, some people argue that, well, Druig had them under control for longer. They weren't in pain during his control. Versus for the people of Westview, they were in so much pain for a week straight. Like, Wanda didn't let them go. So, like, it's just like there's different aspects of the situation. That's just like they didn't do the exact same thing for the exact same reason.
Exactly.
But I will say that a lot of people use the excuse for Wanda is that she was in a lot of pain and that she was grieving and it was an accident. And yes, which I also want to say, I'm also a Wanda stan. I love Wanda a lot. So I'm not like a biased Druig stan. Just want to get that out there. But also with Druig, he was also in so much pain.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like they got to Earth and then within 100 years he took everyone hostage. Like, no, he had 7,000 years of being exhausted mentally from all of the problems that were happening. And like, no one talks about that. I'm like, yes, Wanda was in pain, but so was Druig. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, he was literally watching from the sidelines because the way Druig describes his power is if he was able to take control of everyone on Earth, he didn't do that because he knew that was not his place to. But he was also sitting, like, he was harboring a lot of pain himself from seeing these people literally like kill each other, right? And he was harboring all of that pain. And so he also decided to act out of pain, like help a group of people so that I think for some extent for him, like making the decision to do that was just to also control his own powers before he did do something like pretty drastic.
Exactly.
So yeah, for him it was also out of place of like pain, less of like tyranny, you know, like I'm gonna mind control and kidnap people and make them like mind control an entire town. Because, and I think you're right, like it was out of a place of pain. Like it's not love, but it was definitely not like malicious intent. Like it was out of a place of pain because, like you said, you know, we saw the town, like when we saw the town, like the people were kind of doing their own thing. It was Druig only mind controlled them to communicate with Sprite because the Eternals were there. But other than that, it didn't look like he was controlling them while they were just doing their daily tasks. So one can infer that, you know, he did let the town grow and flourish under his watchful eye. And like you said, they were not in pain for 8,000 years. Yes, they were isolated. We don't know if they were like necessarily isolated. There was like blending and stuff, but yeah, they were definitely, it didn't look like they were in pain for however long Druig had them for.
Right. And I mean, going on with that is when the Eternals like did arrive in the Amazon, the people weren't like seeing new people like, okay, they need to help us leave. Like, this is our one chance to escape. They were like greeting the Eternals, like saying, hi, good afternoon, how are you? So that to me symbolizes that they didn't view Druig as an enemy or a threat, and that he didn't purposely keep them in harm or anything. They viewed him as a friend and a leader. So that's where I feel like, which we don't know that for sure, but you can kind of just like guess based on how they were interacting with the Eternals. And then even after he let them go during the Deviant attack, they were asking like, what's happening? And there's like two options for that. There's either they didn't know why the Deviants were attacking. They're like, what are these creatures doing here? Or they were asking like why he's letting them go of his control. I mean, I just feel like, because if it was me and I was like in my house and then I wake up and I have a gun in my hand and I'm fighting this huge creature, I would be like scared. Like I would have like a scared reaction. Yeah. But they were also calm about it, and they just like were like looking around, and then they were hesitant to leave when he told them to go to the river. Yeah. So all of that kind of just like, for me, symbolizes that they weren't really in fear of him at all. He was like a friend to them.
Yeah, I do think that the one point though that people do use in a way to villainize Druig, which to some extent I can agree with, because that was definitely like the most malicious thing he did, which was definitely like mind control the town and have them fight with guns. And you know, like the townspeople did get hurt, knowing that like they're humans, they can't do much, you know, like that point I do agree with. Like that was definitely like, he was definitely not the good guy there. Like there was like, I don't think there was like, in making that decision, I don't think like there was no malicious intent, but I don't think it was a good decision to make on his part either. And if people are going to criticize Druig, like, and if that's a point they bring up, yeah, like I can't argue and be like, no, like it was not okay what he did. But I wonder like what was going through his brain when he was making that decision. Like, was it like a spur of the moment thing? Like, oh, I can have these people fight even though they can't fight themselves, and I can mind control them, so let me do that. Or do you think it wasn't that deep when he made that decision? It was more like a spur of the moment thing.
I think it was kind of because the Deviant attack was like sudden. It wasn't like they were expecting it or anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was, and like we don't know where he was. Like they said that he had to like think about it, but like we don't know like where he actually was thinking. So I feel like it might have just been first instinct for him, and that he wasn't like wanting them to get hurt, but having 500 years of no violence, he probably didn't really know what else to do, and he just like was feeling unprepared. So he was like, okay, I'm gonna have them fight for me. Which like everything he said, like that was not a good move for him to make, and I agree with that. So I think it was kind of just more of a first instinct type of thing, and that kind of like I don't think he went into that like, okay, there's deviants, I'm gonna have humans fight for me instead. I just think it was kind of what it was like first instinct type of thing.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it was like humans fight for him, because it's not like he was not engaged in the fight himself.
Exactly.
Like he was also engaged. He just had them engaged too to try and protect what was left. But yeah, I definitely do think it was more like a first instinct thing, and it was definitely not a good decision. So I understand how people criticize him for that, but I think it just speaks to him more as a leader, to be honest, and his leadership qualities, and maybe where he might, I don't know, like I think like if we're going to talk about him as a leader, I would characterize him as a leader who acts on his feelings rather than what is deemed would be like the logical pathway, which I think strikes a quite juxtaposition to Icarus, who is a leader of strategy, of, you know, what is the logical thing, while for Druig, it's more about he's a leader of emotion. And I think it shows the way that he decided to make the decision in, you know, back in Technoticon with all those people, and then also having those people fight. It was definitely more of like an emotional reaction over what was the logical thing to do in that situation.
Right. I mean, even going on with that, like once he saw that someone was hurt, like the deviant's tail like knocks that one person out, that's when he stepped in, once he knew that someone was hurt. So that, I still think he should have stepped in sooner, but we saw him like running from somewhere, so maybe he was like trying to get to them, but then he was like further away from the fight.
Yeah.
So he was just like, he got there at the right time once one of them was hurt or something.
Yeah, it was Sersi who did have to get him to stop, though.
Right. Which,
like,
speaking of, I love Sersi and Druig, and I think we should talk about their friendship a little bit.
Oh, yes. No, I think it's definitely something we need to delve into, because they're both very like emotional characters, less than like logical as compared to some of the other Eternals.
Definitely.
Which I think is which would make a little sense, because they are both thinkers, you know, like that's how they are categorized. So yeah, let's talk about, should we move on to Sersi and Druig? I don't know. It's up to you.
Well, I love their friendship. I think they're probably my favorite friendship in the whole movie, except maybe Makkari and Kingo. I don't know. But I just think like their views on humans are very similar, but then also different in a sense. Like they obviously both love humans a lot, but it's in a very different way.
Yes.
Like Sersi is very much like has a relationship with them and wants to be involved with them, versus Druig, who wants to protect them and just overall a protector and wants to like watch from afar and just keep them safe, while Sersi wants to be like intermixed with them and take them personally.
For sure.
But I feel like they can both understand the other side with that, and they can both like have some sort of sense of what the other does with humans, but just like that's not what they choose to do. So I don't know. And I think with Sersi being the one to stop him, because then they have that conversation at the lake after, she just like saying, I could like analyze the line, like, I know that you're better than this. Like, I think he kind of had gone to a point where he was so just like wrapped up in humans' pain that he wasn't seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And that he was so absorbed in like, I need to keep these people safe.
Yeah.
That he had lost touch of who he was, and Sersi could tell. So that's why she said that. And I think that was a moment that he realized like what he was doing and then put a stop to it.
Oh, for sure. Like they definitely have a really interesting dynamic. I mean, I wish I could say I saw more of it, but to be honest, with what we got, I was really happy. I do hope it's something that they explore like further. Cross our fingers. But yeah, no, Druig and Sersi are like I think you're very right in your point of they both love humans. Druig is more of like a protector. For Sersi, it's more like hands-on, like in actually engaging with them, you know? Um, I just think it's like very interesting with Druig because he loves them, but then he's also frustrated with them. But then he also realized like that's a normal path of human life to, you know, engage with those flaws. And like there's going to be flaws that they have to overcome, and that's like I think that's a very important point he makes when he talks to Sersi, and he's like, you know, I think it goes back to the line of I could have taken to the mind of every single person in the world to remove them from their pain, but they have flaws, and that's what makes them human. And I think it goes back to like that universal age-old point that everyone says like a flaw is what makes human life sometimes flourish and evolve. So yeah, I definitely do agree though that he views them as a protector. And I definitely feel like they've had conversations like when throughout their times, maybe when, you know, the other Eternals are all fighting, like just examining human life and talking about just humans and what they think of them and how each of them viewed them. I feel like Sersi and Druig probably had the most philosophical conversations out of all the Eternals, I would say, actually.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I mean, even how like Sersi is like personal with them and Druig like watches them from afar. I feel like the scene with Makkari, like one of the first flashbacks when they start fighting and then he makes them slap each other and then for themselves and then hug each other. I feel like that is just like a perfect example of how he views humans, is that thinks that they're like really dumb for wanting to fight each other all the time, but yet he still loves them and wants to keep them safe.
Yeah. No, and that scene is a perfect demonstration too about like both their differences, because Sersi at that scene was literally dancing with the humans and he was more up on the sideline with Makkari. And like you said, he was protecting them. See, it was in the movie. It was right there at that point.
Yes, Chloe knows.
Chloe knows. Like, I think it goes back to the age-old discussion of you gotta watch Eternals more than once to notice these things.
Yes. And yeah, I feel like just that scene. And then even when he was talking, like when they were in the like it's like a church, whatever room all the Eternals were talking in the Amazon, like he says to Quran, like humans, like you will be your own extinction or something to cause your own extinction.
Yeah,
whatever that line was. So like he knows that humans are ultimately going to be their own downfall. But the fact that he's still trying to prevent that, it's just so interesting. Like he's aware that like humans are gonna cause their own extinction, but yet he's still trying to stop that from happening because of how much he cares for them. So I don't know. It's just his relationship with humans is so interesting. And
there was another moment with Sersi and Druig, and it's towards the finale, and Druig tells Sersi like it has to be you, you know? And I love that because it just shows how supportive they are of each other.
Yes.
And like, you know, Sersi saw the best in, or Sersi was like, during the Amazon, she was like, Druig, I know you're better than this. And then Druig later encouraged her, like, no, you have to be the one to stop Tiamat. You are the one who can do this. Because I think before that, like, Sersi was like confused on what to do a little bit. But it was really Drew who was like, look, it can't be me. It has to be you. So I think it also plays into how they both kind of know each other's strengths. And
yes, definitely.
Exactly. It's really interesting because it's not a friendship that I actually put that much thought into, but it's a big one. Like it speaks volumes for the amount of time that they had on screen together.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think much of their friendship the first few times I watched the movie, but then after a while I was like, oh, they really are like some of the closest friends in this movie.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know if you saw this, but apparently they were supposed to have a romance.
Yeah.
Like, at the very beginning of the script, which I'm just so glad they didn't do that.
I know. They work so much better as friends. Maybe that's like the reason why like they have those scenes where they kind of both like know like maybe that's like the scenes are modified towards like they know each other as friends and well, because initially it was supposed to be written as like a romantic. I'm just glad we didn't go down that path though, for sure.
Yeah. I know some people still ship them, but I'm like, how could you view those scenes as romantic, but then watch drukari scenes and be like, yeah, no, that's not romantic. Like,
I also just feel like Druig and Makkari, like Sersi and Druig are so like feelings based that like Makkari sort of balances that out for Druig.
Mm-hmm.
Like Druig's already so emotional himself. Like Makkari is literally to counteract that, she's like the opposite balance. And if we want, we can talk about Druig and Makkari next. And I will let you take the entire floor with that.
Okay. Well, where do I even start? So as you know, if you're a follower of mine, you know how much I love these two characters. And I think kind of going into more detail with what I was saying towards the beginning is a lot of people just see their relationship as the flirty, cute banter that it is. And yes, I love those scenes a lot. But like from the beginning, we just see that they are very similar, but also extremely different.
Yes.
And like everyone talks about how Druig was the one who wanted to go against Ajax when Venus memories were supposed to be wiped. But Makkari was also hesitant for that to happen. They were the only two who were like, is this really the best thing to do? Which I think that kind of plays into why they went with Dina and the Domo. But that's kind of a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, like they were the only two who really questioned what was happening.
Yeah.
And something that in my podcast that I talked about with one of my friends is she mentioned something that I hadn't really thought about before. But before Druig leaves, there's that scene where Makkari tells him to stay strong. And then I had thought that maybe she had known he was going to leave. Like he told her that he was like planning to leave before the scene happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering if like that scene was her knowing that he's about to leave and just like wanting him to stay a little longer.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of angsty, but I love it. So that is a possibility. And yeah, I mean, just their whole relationship is just amazing to me. And I was going to say, I forgot. Well, I'll ask you this. Do you think they saw each other after the split?
Makkari definitely had the option to. Mm-hmm. Like, she could. I don't think it was like Druig who ever went and saw her. I think if anything, it was probably Makkari who definitely went and saw him. Whether or not they saw each other, I want to say like they definitely like once or twice, because Makkari was literally traveling the world. Who's to say she didn't go to, the last spot where they were all together to collect something, an artifact there. So I think yes, because also it would be very strange if they have so much passion for each other, but then didn't really see each other those 5 years, like the time they were split, because the other Eternals did. Like, Spray and Sersi end up living together. Kingo and Sprite were together for a bit. Gilgamesh and Dina, well, that was more of like protection, but you know what I mean? Like, the other Eternals were still together, so I would not be I just think it was like Druig was so dedicated to his cause of helping the humans that he placed that above his love. But I definitely do think that they saw each other.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think they did also. Just the amount of time they saw each other is just very hard to determine, because I've seen a lot of people having theories about this, and I know some have said that the "Did you miss me" line was more sarcastic than anything, because like they might have just seen each other like the week before and like, oh, did you miss me since then? Or it could be genuine, like they hadn't seen each other in hundreds of years, and I don't know. I could see either one, to be honest.
It's just like we really don't know, like there's, I think with Druig, like there's so much we see of him, but also at the same time, so much of what we see of him is surface level and like open to interpretation. Like, what's going on with the town? What about his powers? To what extent? What about Druig and Makkari? Like, I think that's what makes Druig such an intriguing and complex character, is because we we really don't know actually too much about him as much as we think we do. And so that's what makes him such a well-rounded character at the same time.
Exactly. And kind of went back to Druig and Makkari. For a lot of people, the scene that got them, that like super attached to them, was the My Beautiful Beautiful Makkari scene, of course.
Oh yeah.
Which, of course, I love and adore that scene more than anything. But the scene that really cemented my love for them was her scream when she thought he died.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, that symbolizes that they were so much more than just like flirting.
No,
for all we know, they could have just been a pair that just like flirted but never did anything. Versus that shows that like they really did genuinely love and care for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And like losing him was like Makkari had almost died like 4 times throughout the movie.
Oh
but
yeah.
None of that was painful enough for her to scream. Yet when she thought he was dead, she screamed.
Oh yeah, no, like they definitely, yeah. Sorry for interrupting you.
You're okay.
No, they definitely like. I remember the first time I heard Makkari scream, I actually kind of like I was taken back, and I actually like I kind of like jumped out of my seat because it was so emotional, and you could hear the pain. And I think I could be wrong, but I remember reading a headline saying like this was the first time like Lauren Ridloff has like screamed or like used her voice for a while.
Yeah,
so
the
like
last time she used her voice was when she was 13.
Yeah, and then the scream in Eternals, like if that's the amount of dedication, they definitely their relationship ran a lot more deeper than I think showed on screen.
Right. And that scene was also improvised. Lauren said that like just in the moment she just decided to do it. And I think that really kind of just to touch on Barry and Lauren a little bit, I feel like that really shows how well they know their characters and like the relationship between Druig and Makkari, and how because that they were the ones who brought it to life, and it's because of them and their relationship that's why Druig and Makkari happened. So I feel like they know better than anyone like the extent of Druig and Makkari and all of that. So I just really love that. I think pretty much all of their scenes were improvised.
I was gonna say that, yeah. The entire ship was improvised because I think it was just like Lauren and Barry had really good chemistry on screen. So Chloe was like, yes, let's play off of that. Well, you guys have great chemistry, so let's go off of that. And something else about like Druig and Makkari that I've like on a more general level that I've seen people talk about is the fact that they're definitely shown to be a couple, and that Lauren, like as the actress, is older than Barry, and that's not normally something that you see in media a lot. So like a lot of people were just, you know, like they were really happy about that, like to see that something that's not really popular is where the woman is older and like the actress is older, because normally like it's a fucking huge age gap between the actor and the actress. So yeah, a lot of people were also talking about that and like how happy they were to see that, and kind of the same thing with Dean and Gilgamesh. Like I think Angelina Jolie is stunning, but she's almost in her 50s or something, and Don Lee's like still.
I mean, that's like Lauren, I was shocked to find out she was in her 40s. I thought she was in her like early 20s. And
I thought so too.
I need her skincare routine. I'm like,
draw that skincare routine, Lauren.
I can't get over it. She's gonna be 44 in 4 days.
Don't say that. There's no way she's gonna be 44.
I know. I'm just like, it's as old as like my parents. I don't.
Dude, I know she's like not that much older than my parents are literally not that much older than her. My parents are like not even 5 years older. Like that's how they're close in their age.
I know. I was really shocked to find out how much older. And even just like the fact that Barry and Leah are the youngest on the cast, but yet they're 12 years apart.
Like really? Barry's Oh yeah, you're right. Like Barry's almost 30, right?
Yeah. He's 29.
He's 29, yeah.
Yeah, I was shocked to find that. I'm like, this cast, they all look amazing.
They all look so good. Oh my god. Literally, I think after like the Thor cast, well, the Black Panther cast is just like iconic. But in terms of like casts that like I'm attached to, the Eternals cast is up there with the Thor cast.
Yeah. they're my number one. But yeah.
I just have a lot of love for like Tessa Thompson and Tom Hiddleston, so that's why the Thor cast also remains supreme for me. But yeah, also Taika Waititi. So
yes, that's very true.
Speaking of which, what are your thoughts on seeing Druig in Thor 4?
Well, if that does happen, I am not prepared because that's in like 3 months. And my brain has done this weird thing where I've convinced myself that I'm never getting new Eternals content ever again, that like this is all that we're ever going to have.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that once I see Druig Makkari on the screen again, I'm just not going to think it's real. I'm like, no, this isn't real. Like, it's not actually happening. And it's going to take me like weeks and months to process it. So I'm not prepared at all, but I would be really surprised if they're not in it. At least a post-credit scene.
You'll be like that wasn't real. You know what reference?
No,
and they'll be like, it was real. It was real to me.
Yes, exactly. It was real to me. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would just be really surprised if they're not in it because it would make perfect sense. Like,
the Eternals,
the Guardians and Thor are in space. Druig Makkari and Theon are in space.
It's like way beyond that too. Like, they're not just that they're in space. There has been a direct connection established to Thor not once but twice in the Eternals movie out of all of the Avengers.
Right.
So they have to show up. Like, the Eternals helped Odin in his battle against the Frost Giants. Mm-hmm. Literally, like, that still blows my mind because let's say the Eternals didn't help Loki. Like, would that have happened? Like, if it's canon that the Eternals helped, they have such a big impact because
literally,
would Loki have, like, if the Eternals didn't help, like, they would have helped because, like, Odin has, like, he's the king of Asgard. He has a big army. Like, he has a lot of power. But the Eternals had to step in and help. It was a tough battle. So the Eternals didn't step in and help. Like, would we have ever gotten Loki? I'm just saying.
It's like, they literally impact so much, if not the entire MCU at some point.
Oh, yeah.
And the people who are like, yeah, Eternals, like, it was a waste of a movie. It was horrible. I'm like, look, none of your faves would be a thing if it weren't for the Eternals. Like, they literally are, like, the foundation of the MCU.
I, like, need to see, this is, like, a little bit of a deviation, but that's why I really need to see Phastos in Wakanda, like, that being a thing, because my freaking big headcanon is that Wakanda would not be, like, Phastos helped guide Wakanda in terms of how vibranium should be utilized.
Yeah.
And he could have done it, like, thousands of years ago and just left. Because that's just Phastos, you know, like, after they split up.
Right.
So, like, that's, like, my big headcanon, like, Phastos and Wakanda, like, that would make a huge major turning point for the MCU because Wakanda is big. Vibranium's a big thing. Like, and if Phastos is the one who helped literally develop, like, helped advise and develop Wakanda, like, that's a big thing in the MCU. Right. Like, the Eternals have a much bigger off-screen impact than people would realize, let's say, if, you know, all of these headcanons of how they interfered would come true. So.
Right. Yeah, and even there's a lot of rumors that Dane's going to be in Moon Knight.
Oh, yeah. And I'm pretty sure he is. There's no way he cannot be in Moon Knight.
I haven't watched Moon Knight yet. I have to wait until tomorrow to watch it. But I also feel like Makkari might be in it, or Sersi.
Sersi's in space, though.
That's true. Well, I was thinking like a reference.
Yeah. Sersi could be in it because we actually technically don't know when Moon Knight is set on the MCU timeline.
Right.
We don't know if it's like post-blip, pre-blip. Like, there's no indication as to where it is in the timeline. So honestly, we could. Also, the other reason we could see the Eternals is because Moon Knight heavily relies on mythology, and the Eternals are mythology. So we could actually. Which
it would just be like a perfect time frame for them to be included because, like, they haven't been mentioned since Eternals.
They're also, Moon Knight was the first project where we saw the Eternals in the Marvel logo. So
it's true. Yeah.
I definitely do think we'll be seeing Dane, though. Like, there's no way they can have it be set in a British museum and have Stephen Grant working in a freaking British museum and you don't have Dane show up. Like, no.
yeah, I just need to see any of them. Literally any of the Eternals, Dane, Karan, just like any Eternals character.
I
I
know,
need to
I'm
see them soon.
like,
It's been almost 5 months.
it's been 5 months. Like, let us show them.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else left to say about Druig?
I kind of want to talk about like the potential of Druig's characters and like what maybe you think about that and just like where because I feel like even Barry has said this that he thinks that like they didn't really show that much of Druig's powers and that he could become much more powerful. So I am really curious as to what would happen to see like the full extent of his powers. And even like with Sersi, how she was saying that she didn't know she could turn the deviant into a tree. Like that just shows that all of the Eternals are capable of more than they realize.
Yeah.
And like obviously they can't evolve, but I feel like there's just so much more within them that they just like never really let themselves like
Nope.
allow to happen because they didn't have a need to.
Nope.
So I don't know. I feel like Druig will eventually be able to take control of other beings that aren't humans.
Yes.
We don't know if he can take control of like it's still iffy if you can control the Eternals, but then like other species on other planets.
Yeah, I think definitely like his like the way that his powers can evolve is him taking control of like other species on other planets. I don't think though they'll ever have him take control of other Eternals because then that would just like I think that would just be like
Arishem.
unrealistically too much, you know?
Right, which like why would Arishem design one Eternal who could have the power to
Exactly.
stop this whole
Yeah.
mission?
Yeah. So I definitely don't think other Eternals, but yeah, I definitely do agree that in the future we might see him being able to take control of, you know, like other beings, animals. Right. Which begs the question, like, I definitely do think I see it going down that way because otherwise, if that was in the Eternals movie, then defeating the Deviants would be a lot more simpler than it looked like with the other Eternals. If he just went like this and like took control of them.
Right. There's just like so many things where like even I would say that like killing him off in the very beginning of the emergence fight is like an easier move to go, which I guess like him not being able to take control of Eternals. But then also I've seen a lot of people say that maybe he can put Eternals to sleep. Like Gilgamesh asking him to put Thena to sleep and then the whole plan to put Tiamat to sleep.
Right. That's such a I like didn't even
I know. Someone said that to me and I can't remember who it was, but I was like, oh, that would make total sense.
No, I genuinely think that happened. Like I think he might be able to put like other Eternals to sleep or like well, I guess that begs the question, is he able to control emotions then? Because like when you're putting someone to sleep, it's like you're calming them, right? So like I guess it's complex because you don't really know how his mind control works, if we're being honest. Like he can mind control them to like, you know, like be calm. Is his mind control more emotion based then? Because the first time we saw him when they entered in from the ship, right? Like the very like in like the very first time the Eternals entered in, he left out his hand and the people that were approaching them, they dropped their weapons. So it's almost like the first time we saw him using his powers, it was to more like calm a group of people. Actually. But then when we saw him do it in like Tenochtitlan, it was more of like getting them to gather around again, drop their weapons and like coming together. Or it's like, I definitely think like his mind control is more like a manipulation of emotions.
Right. I mean, I am a huge fan fiction reader and I love when fan fictions like dive into like Druig's powers. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of them written very well where they like really explore a lot of his power potential. And so one that I read, they wrote him so like he was able to manipulate parts of the brain into doing certain things. So like there was one part where he like was purposely inflicting pain on someone.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say because it's like a long story. Yeah. But he was able to like tap into that part of the brain that like inflicts pain onto humans or whatever. I don't know the details of the brain. I'm not.
No, I get it. Yeah, it's
but things like that.
It's really complex and interesting. Like there's so like we really don't know the extent of his powers. Like if he did he actually put Thena to sleep? Like is his thing more like, like manipulation of the mind, but like to what? Like, can he alter memories? Can he make people forget?
Yeah,
Like
there's just like
that?
so much you don't know. And one of my headcanons is that to kind of help Thena with her memory is that he's able to do this um like memories thing where it's almost like she's watching a movie of her entire life, but it's only the good memories and it kind of like calms her mind.
Mm,
And just kind of like not like you're sleeping. Like you're aware that it's happening, but like you're just reliving all these memories at once.
yeah.
Which I don't know if that's possible, but I just think that because
No, it's God, there's so much. Like, I definitely do think that he's a lot more powerful than they show, and I really hope that they tap into that. Like,
I would be surprised if they don't, especially how much of a fan favorite he is. Like I would be
oh
shocked.
yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely do think that, which speaking of, like, I definitely do see him coming in Thor 4 for some reason. Like him, Dina, and Makkari, or like Dina and Makkari, like one of those three or two
Yeah.
might pop up in Thor 4. But where do you see like overall the character going? And also, what Avengers would you like to see him interact with the most?
Um well, to answer the Avengers question first, I feel like I want to see him interact with Wanda. Just
Mm,
because like they do have a lot in common, despite the fact that their town situations are different, it's still like an overall similar thing
yeah.
that like no other Eternals characters or Marvel characters
Yeah.
have done. So I feel
Yeah.
like that would just be a really funny conversation. Like, oh, you can control minds? Yeah, me too. You should have taken over a town? Yeah, me too. um, I don't know. I mean, of the ones that are still alive, that you can interact with, or
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, variants, but like, whatever.
well, I feel like a lot of people wanted to interact with Loki and Bucky, but I don't think it would go well.
I don't
Like,
think he'd go well with Bucky. Bucky would literally
yeah.
run away. He'd
No,
be
he
like,
would be terrified.
you can manipulate minds. Bye. I'm
Yeah,
out.
exactly.
Oh my God. Speaking of which, should we touch on the Druig Loki Bucky thing or not?
Yes. Oh my god. I
With the,
annoys
we
me.
both hate it. So,
Yeah, we both hate it so much. Oh my god, it's so annoying. And um, I don't know. I just like I understand to an extent why fans made that a thing, like the Holy Trinity, because all three of them like the side characters
mm-hmm.
who everyone
That's
fell in
about
love
the
with.
only thing they have in common, though.
But that's literally it.
That's literally it.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the fact they're all like white men, but whatever. Other than that,
Yeah.
other than that, the only thing that's similar between the three of them, and I can understand if people are like Loki, Bucky, Druig, like pipeline, is because like they fall in love with the side characters rather than like the main guy they're supposed to be
Mhm.
focusing on. Like if that's what you want to say, like that's the pipeline, that's fine. But
Right.
anything more than that, it's like I think a lot of people misinterpret his character, and it kind of goes back to like he's like this
So mad.
broody like figure, and like he kind of hates everyone, and it's like it's
no.
actually the exact opposite, because if you look at his actions and decisions he make, like we said, he's doing it out of protection, he's doing it out of love. Bucky's a little different because Bucky doesn't like hate anyone. It's just that like he's been through so much, like he finds it hard to
Right.
trust people, which I understand for his character. Loki literally does not really like humans. Like we saw that from the
Right.
very beginning. He was just like, we saw him as a villain first, and then after that, ever since what was it? Ever since like Ragnarok, like first of all, the guy's dead. So that's one thing. Like our Loki is dead. Number two, he only really like loved the people of Asgard because that's his actual home. But we still don't really know like he how he feels about like people from other species, or how he still feels about humans. Like the guy's still a trickster. In fact, him and Sprite are way more in common.
Yes.
That is a hill I will die on.
Get along really well. But yeah, I just like I think that like Druig would be really annoyed with Loki. Like Bucky would be terrified of him. And then like he would get so fed up with Loki. Kind of going back to like everyone getting his character wrong, that annoys me so much because I'm just like, how could you have watched the scene where they're in the temple and be like, yeah, he hates humans? Like that, it's like literally the whole basis of his character is he left because he wanted to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you think he hates humans because of that? I can get like maybe the other Eternals because he is definitely like I don't know the word for it is like sarcastic, I guess, with them, and it's just like a pain with them, but he definitely loves them all. He almost died for all of them.
I still think that he's one of the few Eternals that like actually enjoys everyone minus Icarus.
Yeah.
Like he has a thing with Icarus. But other than that,
I know that a lot of people also love, like, to make it seem like Druig and Icarus like hate each other a lot. But honestly, I feel like Phastos and Athena hate Icarus more than Druig does.
yeah. Phastos hates Icarus like a lot.
Right. So I just feel like that was something that people just like jumped the gun on and like, yeah, Druig and Icarus hate each other, but I'm like, I don't think he hates him the most out of all the Eternals. Definitely is like a lot of dislike between their relationship, but still I don't think it's like intense hatred. But
no.
Yeah, I hate that he hates everyone but her trope for Drukkari. I'm like, that is not them whatsoever. It's just
I'm not gonna sit here and like be like, yeah, because I honestly did support that trope for like
I did
maybe
too
the first time after I watched the movie, because it definitely felt like that. But you know, like after a few rewatches and like obviously discussions like these, it's no, that trope.
Yeah, I did too. I captioned one of my first Drukkari edits, like they're the epitome of the I hate everyone but you trope, and then now I'm like, that's not true. Which I changed the caption, so don't go try to find it because I changed it because I'm like, I don't agree with that now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like just that like trope. I'm just like, that's not them whatsoever. Like he definitely is the like happiest with her and is the most like gentle with her, but like he definitely does not hate everyone.
No, like we talked about Sersi and Druig, and
exactly.
We didn't even get a chance to touch on Kingo and Druig, which I just think is like one of the most like funniest scenes in all of Eternals. Like I honestly think Kingo like Sersi brings out like okay, Makkari brings out like Druig's like protective, like loving side. Sersi sort of brings out more of his like emotional, like philosophical, and then Kingo really brings out the comedy that is in Druig. And I think that's like Kingo's strength, which we're not talking about Kingo here, but like I never saw Druig be as funny in Eternals as he was with Kingo, or when it came to like something with Kingo.
Which, speaking of that scene, I've seen no one talk about this, but after he asked how many views, and Kingo's like, I don't do it for the views. Druig's like, what do you do it for then? It's like you can barely hear him say that, but it's in the background, right? As Icarus is like, he's wasting our time, which I just love that detail. But yeah, that whole scene was just hilarious, and just like it's definitely not like dislike or hatred between them.
No.
And even like Kingo saying like Druig sucks, well, honestly,
it's like a brotherly banter, because like the way Kingo like sees Makkari as a sister, and then he sees Druig as a brother, and then he's like, you guys are cute together.
Yeah, but then also since like Kingo was very adamant about the fact that them staying together would have been the best option, and just like his whole ordeal is like his love for his family.
Yeah.
So then like he has that scene with Sprite where he says we should have all stayed together, otherwise Ajax wouldn't have died. Do you think he kind of blames Druig for that? That like Druig was the reason why they all split up. So that might be some dislike between them where like he kind of blames him for like, you're the reason why all this is happening.
Well, Druig was the catalyst, but it was really Ajax who made the decision to let them all go free, right?
Right. Which like yeah, like
Druig
that
only questioned them.
But like Kingo might might just use Druig as a reason as to be like, you're the blame for this.
I didn't sense that much hostility towards
I don't think it's like very obvious.
But... So I personally would say like I would say no, but I definitely do think that Kingo is probably like the fans and views Druig as this dark, broody person the most, but he's not actually like that.
Right. Yeah, I definitely see that. Or even, I know, like for a lot of people, they're like the biggest plot hole of Eternals was how did Kingo and Phastos like not know that something was happening with Druig and Makkari, and just like the fact that like Kingo could tell with Sprite and Icarus, but then not with Druig and Makkari. I just don't buy it. I'm like, he definitely knew, but he was just like,
he's also sarcastic as hell. So like,
exactly, he was just like being a pain about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, how there's no way that he did not notice anything, especially being like Makkari's best friend in a sense. There's just no way that like she didn't talk about Druig to him, and he would have been like so annoyed with it, but also happy for her.
I do not have anything to talk about Druig. Do you?
I think that's kind of it.
We had a good, like, meaty hour-long discussion about Druig, which is crazy because I think that's like what makes Eternals so good. It's like there's 10 characters, yes, but there's so much you can talk about each character. Like we literally had an hour-long conversation about one of them. That's
I have
crazy.
an hour-long discussion like each week about different topics. I mean characters, just like topics in Eternals with my sister and I.
Yeah, exactly. And
So
definitely if you guys want to like hear a different perspective or a different deep dive into Eternals, because my podcast is a little bit more broad, I highly recommend you go and check out
Thanks.
Skylar's podcast, All Things Eternals. She works really hard on it. She gives great perspectives. She also hosts it with her sister, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, make sure to check out Skylar everywhere. If you are a fan of Druig, I hope you enjoy this podcast. Let me know your thoughts on it on Instagram or TikTok, whatever it may be. And get ready for the rest of the podcast episodes about each of the Eternals. And hopefully your favorite one pops up soon. Thank you so much, Skylar, for joining me to talk about the one and only Druig. And I hope you guys all have a good day. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate this podcast wherever you're listening, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.